Good afternoon, everyone. Today I have been asked to speak on EUS guided tissue acquisition from unusual sites. We all know that EUS FNA of pancreatic lesions and lymph nodes have been the workhorse of EUS guided tissue acquisition. Over last few years, there has been improvement in the scope design as well as development of newer generation needles, and this has led on to access of unusual and non-conventional sites for EUS guided tissue acquisition. Mainly, it involves EUS guided liver biopsy, improvement in tissue acquisition from cystic lesions of pancreas, and then EUS FNA and FNB from unusual sites. And these are the 3 points which I am going to cover in my talk. Let's talk about EUS guided liver biopsy. The idea of using EUS to perform liver biopsy is appealing because both the lobes of the liver can be sampled in one procedure. The use of real-time Doppler reduces the risk of vascular injury and bleeding during the procedure. Importantly, the procedure can be done simultaneously under same sedation with therapeutic endoscopy in patients with cirrhosis. This procedure is less painful than percutaneous liver biopsy, as during the EUS guided liver biopsy, the skin is not traversed. And also, with the advent of devices to measure the portal pressure, EUS guided portal pressure measurements help in management of patients with portal hypertension in a much better way, along with doing a EUS guided liver biopsy. Now, before we discuss the EUS guided liver biopsy, what are the qualities of a good quality liver biopsy? We all know that length and diameter of the biopsy core affects the grading and staging in diffuse liver diseases. And studies have shown that at least 11 complete portal triads should be visualized in the histopathology specimen, which is needed to overcome the inter-observer variability and disease heterogeneity. And it has been shown that a liver biopsy, which is at least 2 centimeter long and at least 1.4 millimeter wide, with minimal or no fragmentation will ensure this in 94% of patients. Now, let's go to EUS guided liver biopsy. First and foremost, it is important to understand that whole of the liver cannot be sampled using an EUS. So we can sample only that part of liver which is adjacent to the gastroduodenum. So we can sample segment 2, 3, 4A, 5, and very rarely 6. Predominantly, the right lobe is sampled using segment 5, and left lobe is sampled using segment 2 and 3. Now, what we do is first we go to the GE junction, identify the inferior vena cava, that's the intrahepatic portion of IVC. Now we top the scope anti-clockwise, we'll cross the liver hilum, the porta is there, and then little anti-clockwise talk will bring us to the left lobe, which is segment 3 of the liver, and this can be sampled now using a EUS guided approach. Now, similarly for the right lobe, you have to push the scope into the duodenum. So by default, the face of the echo endoscope faces downwards. So we have to rotate it 180 degrees so that it faces the undersurface of the liver, and then segment 5 can be approached from the duodenum and liver biopsy can be done. Now, this is how the right lobe of the liver is seen, and then you can do a sampling of segment 5 using an EUS guided approach. The same thing clarified on fluoroscopy. For the left lobe, we are just at the G junction sampling the segment 3 of the liver, and this is the duodenum. The scope is in the long root, and the echo endoscope is facing towards the undersurface of liver, and you are sampling the segment 5 of the liver. Now, once you have chosen your target area, use a Doppler to identify an avascular plane, and then you puncture it with a 19 gauge biopsy needle to obtain the histological core for assessing the liver biopsy. Now, what are the results of EUS guided liver biopsy? Over last decade, there have been a number of studies which have assessed the diagnostic accuracy of EUS guided liver biopsy, and the meta-analysis has shown that the rate of insufficient specimen is 10.1%, and in majority of these patients, it's because of fragmentation, and the pooled rate of successful histological diagnosis is a phenomenal 94% rate, which is as good as percutaneous liver biopsy. What about complications? The studies have shown that the complications with the EUS guided liver biopsy are very low, and the pooled analysis showed that the pooled rate of adverse events, this is the result from 8 studies involving 437 patients, was just 2.3%. And importantly, the pooled rate of bleeding was 1.2%. And fortunately, the serious bleeding episodes was very rarely encountered using an EUS guided liver biopsy. Now let's in brief look at the techniques. Various techniques are being available in the literature. Which one is best? The first question is how many number of actuations are needed to obtain a good liver biopsy? The studies which have been published in literature have performed 1 to 10 actuations. These are to and fro movements once you entered in the liver. And a recent study has suggested that a single pass with a single actuation might be enough for adequate specimen in majority of patients while doing an EUS guided liver biopsy. However, there is no published study which has compared a single actuation with multiple actuations, and we eagerly await results of such a study which will compare a single actuation with multiple actuation. Till that time, what we practice is to do 2 to 3 actuations, and which we feel is giving an adequate specimen in more than 95% of patients undergoing EUS guided liver biopsy. Now, which needle to use? Now, there have been a lot of comparative studies between 19 and 22 gauge, both FNA and FNB needles, and studies have shown that 19 gauge needle is better than 22 gauge needle in obtaining a better quality liver biopsy, and there is no ambiguity in that. And now we have studies which have compared 19 gauge FNB needles with 19 gauge FNA needles, and these studies have shown that the FNB needles yielded more complete portal triads as compared to FNA needles. Hence, the best needle in the current times for EUS guided liver biopsy is probably to use a 19 gauge FNB needles. Now, there have been few studies which have looked at flushing the needle initially with saline, now with heparin, and there is one comparative study which has shown that pre-flushing the needle with wet heparin is much better than dry suction and wet suction with saline in obtaining robust tissue samples. And hence the current practice, which can be based on evidence in 2021, would suggest that a wet heparinized suction, use of a 19 gauge second generation core needle with 1 to 3 actuation seems to provide best specimens with least amount of fragmentation while doing an EUS guided liver biopsy. Now, what about EUS guided liver biopsy versus percutaneous liver biopsy? There have been a lot of retrospective studies which have compared these two routes and have shown that the diagnostic accuracy is comparable. However, the adverse events were less in EUS guided liver biopsy as compared to percutaneous liver biopsy, especially the pain. But then we needed a randomized study to find out which of these two routes are best. And now a recent randomized study published in Gut showed that although the final diagnosis could be made in all the patients with both the routes, both EUS guided and percutaneous liver biopsy were equally efficacious in achieving a diagnosis. However, histologically more optimal specimens were obtained with a percutaneous route as compared to EUS guided route. And similarly, the median specimen length obtained was longer with percutaneous route as compared to EUS guided route. Importantly, the post-procedure visual analog score for pain, which is considered to be an advantage for EUS guided liver biopsy, persisted only for 1 hour after the procedure, and thereafter the pain scores were similar for both EUS guided and percutaneous liver biopsy routes. Also, the total mean cost accrued was significantly higher with EUS method. The percutaneous liver biopsy was significantly cheaper as compared to EUS guided liver biopsy. So where are we in 2021? In current practice, percutaneous liver biopsy seems to be a better option than EUS guided liver biopsy. However, there seems to be a cohort of patients who would benefit from EUS guided procedures over percutaneous liver biopsy, especially the patients who have heightened pain sensitivity, patients who are obese, patients who need a concomitant endoscopy for staging of the varices, and patients who need both lobe liver biopsy. These subgroup of patients may be given an EUS guided liver biopsy over a percutaneous liver biopsy. Now, second important topic is tissue acquisition in pancreatic cystic lesions. EUS has been a workhorse for evaluation of pancreatic cystic lesions because first it provides improved resolution of the images. Here we can see the septa much beautifully on EUS. On a CT scan, we could identify these septa. And also importantly, you can aspirate the fluid and send it for analysis, which will help in better differential diagnosis of pancreatic cystic lesions. But despite these advantages, we know that we still haven't reached of perfection in evaluation of pancreatic cystic lesions with EUS. Now, if you look at the cystic fluid CEA, which has a pooled sensitivity of 63%, which is a moderate sensitivity and a very high specificity for identifying mucinous lesions, if we have a cutoff of 192 nanogram per ml. Also, along with moderate sensitivity, the CEA level is not predictive of malignancy. So we cannot differentiate between benign, potentially malignant, and malignant mucinous cysts. And now there have been some studies on evaluation of cyst fluid glucose, which has encouraging results. And it has some studies have shown that maybe it's better than CEA for identifying the mucinous cyst. But still, the problem still of moderate sensitivity remains with cyst fluid glucose also. What about cytology? Again, the overall accuracy of cytology for accurately diagnosing pancreatic cystic lesion is a very poor, around 50% only. Presence of mucin, although indicates a mucinous pancreatic cystic lesion, but then this is seen in only 1/3 of patients with mucinous cysts. And then cytological diagnosis of a malignant cyst, although has a very high specificity, but the sensitivity is very, very low. There has been a lot of talk about molecular analysis. There have been a lot of studies using KRAS, GNAS, and RNFA43 mutations. Next generation sequencing is used to identify these mutations. And KRAS mutation has been shown to be present in mucinous cyst. And GNAS mutation has been shown to be helpful in differentiating IPMN from mucinous cystic neoplasms. But then studies have shown that the molecular marker analysis does not significantly add to CEA values. And also these mutations are not able to differentiate between benign and malignant cysts. So with this background of poor diagnostic accuracy of available modalities for accurately diagnosing pancreatic cystic lesions, came the logic of using an EUS guided through the needle biopsy. The advantage of this is that it will offer us a possibility of the holy grail of pathology for diagnosing the cystic lesions. Now we have microbiopsy forceps, which is developed by Steris Healthcare, which are advanced through a 19-gauge needle to acquire the pinch biopsies of cyst wall and or mural nodules. It's the same way as we do the mucosal biopsies during endoscopy. And the studies have shown that the optical technique for microbiopsy forceps is to have two separate biopsy bites with tenting. What is tenting? I'll just explain you in the next slide. This twice tenting has produced a diagnostic accuracy of 74%. Now we have a meta-analysis of 8 studies with 426 patients, which has shown that through the needle biopsy, histology is more likely to diagnose a specific type of cyst as compared to FNA and cytology. So it is almost double the accuracy with the histology as compared to just fluid aspiration. So these are the through the needle biopsy forceps, which go through the needle and then you open it and close as you do it for mucosal biopsies. And you puncture the cyst with a 19-gauge needle, then take your microbiopsy forceps, pinch the cyst wall. This is what is tenting, as I was talking in my previous slide. So you have to obtain 2 specimens from 2 different sites, and this will give you an accuracy of about 74%. Now, these are not just limited to simple cystic lesions. This is one patient who was referred to us with a cystic lesion in an uncinate process of pancreas, which was showing an uptake on the peripheries in the walls. An EUS guided FNA was done from outside, which was inconclusive, followed by an EUS guided FNB, which was again inconclusive. So patient, when came to us, we did an EUS, we found it was a complex cystic lesion with solid and liquid areas. So we did an EUS guided FNB first. Again, we got only necrosis. So therefore we decided to proceed ahead with through the needle biopsy forceps. And this is the 19-gauge needle. And this is the through the needle biopsy opened up and acquiring the specimen from the solid areas. And we could get a core of tissue from this lesion, which was a lymphoid tissue, and we could identify granulomas. And this patient was subsequently treated with ADT and improved. Now, finally, talking about tissue acquisition from other unusual sites. So wherever the EUS scope can go, we can sample the lesions. Biliary duct strictures, again, EUS can help us in acquiring the tissues. A meta-analysis has shown a sensitivity of about 66% and specificity of 100% for acquiring tissues from bile duct strictures. And if you can see a mass lesion, the sensitivity is much higher. Here, for example, in this lesion, there is vague thickening at the lower end of the bile duct with dilatation of CBD and biliary sludge. On elastography, the lesion could be identified as firm lesion. And then in these vague, indiscernible lesions, we are using harmonic EUS, where the lesions become much more prominent using harmonic US, and it has been sampled, and this was confirmed to be a cholangiocarcinoma, and subsequently resected Whipple specimen also shows marked desmoplastic reaction at the lower end of bile duct, leading on to narrowing. Similarly, a patient with a hilar block, the confluence is patent. On EUS, we could identify the thickened CBD wall. Sampling could be done and identified as cholangiocarcinoma. Similarly, the tissue can be acquired from thickening anywhere in the GI tract, ranging from esophagus, stomach, and rectum. Initial studies with FNA needles from GI tract wall thickening were disappointing, but now we have preliminary results with FNB needles, and the results are encouraging even for tissue acquisition from thickened gastric or esophageal walls. Just to give examples, this is a thickened esophageal wall, US guided FNB done and proven to be squamous cell carcinoma. Another patient with a lower esophageal thickening, mucosal biopsy inconclusive, US guided FNB proved to be adenocarcinoma. And similarly in stomach, this is a Linitis plastica. In the antrum, these lesions can be much better identified on a forward wing echoendoscope, and sampling could be done and proved to be a Linitis plastica. Importantly, also places like thickening and narrowing in the esophagus where the scope cannot be negotiated. Here in this case, there is a esophageal narrowing at the lower end. The echoendoscope could not be negotiated, but you could identify the thickening of the gastric wall from the lower end of the esophagus, and sampling could be done and proven to be adenocarcinoma. Similarly, patients who have post-surgical anatomy, if your echoendoscope can reach there, the sampling can be done. Like for this example, who has undergone an esophagectomy for a squamous cell carcinoma, had a PET positive lymph nodes year after surgery, which could be identified on EUS and sampled. Similarly, peritoneum, omentum, and pleura can also be sampled using an EUS. This is a patient with an undiagnosed pleural effusion. EUS could identify these pleural deposits along with pleural effusion, and sampling was done using a 22-gauge FNB needle and proven to be metastatic adenocarcinoma. Similarly, a thickened omentum, which can be identified from the stomach. On elastography, the omentum has variable stiffness, peripheral enhancement on contrast EUS, and EUS guided FNB proving it to be tubercular involvement of the omentum. Similarly, peritoneal nodules, either because of malignancy or tuberculosis, can be identified and sampled using a 22 or a 25-gauge needle and can help in establishing a diagnosis. Similarly, other unusual sites, like this patient has an IVC tumor identified on CT. CT-guided biopsy could not be done because of the overlying bowel and vasculature. On EUS, we could identify this perivascular tumor, on which 22-gauge needle sampling was done and proven it to be leiomyosarcoma. Similarly, here is a patient who had come with dysphagia and backache. MRI showed it to be a collapse of vertebra with a prevertebral abscess, and on EUS we could identify the abscess and a prevertebral lesion, which was identified to be tuberculosis on EUS FNA. Similarly, the splenic lesions, especially near the hilum, can be sampled using an EUS guided approach. These lesions are difficult to be sampled percutaneously because of being close to the hilum, but then on EUS you can confidently sample these lesions. So to conclude, EUS guided tissue acquisition has revolutionized the diagnostic medicine. With the availability of newer needles, especially the FNB needles, this has improved the tissue acquisition, and EUS has expanded the reach of gastroenterologists beyond the GI lumen, even helping other specialties in establishing a diagnosis. There is a famous quote in Hindi, "Jahan na paunche Ravi, wahan paunche Kavi," meaning by where the sun rays don't reach, the imagination of the poet reaches. Similarly, EUS helps us in tissue acquisition from sites where no other imaging modality can reach, and help us in proper and better management of patients with these diseases. Thank you so much for your patient hearing.